Hi, kindergarten friends. This is the last few steps you're going to take to finish your fish. Remember, we're doing that watercolor resist. So we started our first day talking about fish, drawing two totally different fish ideas. Then yesterday, you were going to take your fish ideas and put one on each different piece of your project paper. Remember that we were adding not just the fish with some patterns and details, but we were also adding some things to our background. Our background is going to give our viewers clues to where our fish is. And since our fish was underwater, we talked and brainstormed about the things that we could add. Things like seaweed and coral, crabs, and other little baby fish, jellyfish, seahorse. There's so many different things that live under the sea. So in addition to drawing our fish nice and big, using our shapes to plot out our space, and getting all of our parts of a fish on there, our eyes and mouth, our gills so it can breathe, the fins and tail so it can steer and swim, and then decorating it with our patterns, we also created each individual piece for our background. So to move on to this step today, you need to have drawn your whole composition. That's the whole piece of art. Your fish and all of your background details on each different piece of your project paper. Remember, we were making two, and we were working on making differences between our two pieces of work. After you drew them with your pencil, we decided to trace them with crayon. The reason we trace our lines with crayon is so that when we move on to our step for today, which is to start with our watercolor, we can make the watercolor stay within our lines. It's going to help us control our watercolor because the water of the paint and the wax of the crayons don't mix. And so the wax helps keep the watercolor where you want it to go. All right, so if you finished your two pieces of paper with your art on them and you've traced your art with your different colors of crayons, then you're ready for today's video. The supplies you'll need for today, in addition to your artwork, you'll also need your set of watercolors. With your watercolors, you should have your watercolor brush and a small dish of water, and then some paper towels. Our paper towels are good for helping us clean our brushes and also cleaning up if we have a small spill. Let's go ahead and get started together. All right, so here are my supplies. I have a small clay little pot with some water in it. I like this because it's nice and heavy on the bottom. I don't want to use something that if I accidentally knocked it just a little bit might fall over because I'm trying to not make a mess. I have my paper towels. I have my watercolors, and I have the green brush that Miss has sent home because this is a nice, good paintbrush for you to use. Let's remind ourselves a few things about our supplies before we start painting. The first thing is to clean our brush. Remember that we paint our brush on the bottom of our little water dish. Do you remember why we do that? We do it because when we paint it on the bottom, it spreads our bristles apart. And when it spreads our bristles apart, that helps get the paint that's stuck inside and between the bristles out. What do we do next? We test our brush on our paper towel. If it paints nice and clear like it just did, I know that I'm ready to switch to a new color. I want to do that because I don't want to mix all my colors up, especially if I was using a darker color like black and then switch to my yellow, it would really change the color of my yellow. So the best thing I can do is make sure I have a clean brush each time. One last thing to remember that's special about our watercolor paints is they're called watercolors. We call them watercolors because we need water to make our paints work. Right now, these paints do not want to work. They don't have enough water. The paint is very sticky. So To get them going, we get some good water on our brush, and then we'll start to mix it up here. And what we're doing is we're mixing the water into the top layer of our paint. And if we think it still needs more, then we dip it again and get even more water on there until it's a good color and ready to go. Okay, let me get my picture. Okay, so here's one of the pictures that I drew of my fish. I have some coral and a starfish and some seaweed in my background. I also added the details of some bubbles coming out of my fish's mouth. I have some great patterns on my fish, and I am ready to go. Okay, I'm going to show you a couple things to remember as you're working on your painting. First, remember water, good amount of water. Now, we talked about how the paint and the crayon and the water, so the water and the paint don't mix really well. That's going to help us keep our paint in the lines. It's going to keep it from running out. So just like I talked about when we were talking about coloring in nice and neat, we kind of want to trace the outlines first, and then we can add a bit more and go a little faster on the insides if we take our time when we do the outsides. Remember too that when we are painting, we want to pull the brush along, not push it. When we push it, we spread the bristles apart, which doesn't make for a nice little painting line. Now, the crayon won't hold all of our paint in. We still have to be careful as we're working. Another important thing to remember as you're working is that you want to fill in all your things first and then worry about the blue for the background of your sea. And when you're working, you don't want too much water. We need just enough water, but you don't want to have like pools of water sitting on your paper. When our paper gets really, really wet, it might tear a hole in it. So it's important that if we have too much paint in an area, then we kind of pick it up and we carry it to the other areas in our painting. And if I'm using my red here, when my red gets too pinkish, that's telling me I don't quite have enough paint and I have more water than paint. So the more paint I have, the darker the color will be. But I still need enough water on it to get it to a smooth application. So what you'll do is you'll keep working. Here I am cleaning my brush, painting the bottom. I can check it if I'm unsure. If it's all the way clean, I check it on my paper towel. So I want you to work on painting both of your fish. Think about the differences that you're creating between your two fish as you go. Your different patterns. What about different colors? Our fish are underwater, so we might have both backgrounds might end up being blue because they're under the water. And some things might be the same, maybe like your seaweed, but your patterns and other choices can be different. Notice how I'm painting my seaweed. My water or my paint is really helping stay in the lines because of my crayon lines. It's really helping me to be nice and neat as I apply my paint. So You'll keep working until you finish all the way. Let me show you what one of my finished pieces looks like. Here's the one I drew yesterday. All painted in, nice and neat. I think this looks great. You can tell where the crayon lines helped my red stripes really stay super nice and neat when I painted my other fins purple. Okay, if you have any questions, send me a message. I'm happy to help. I can't wait to see your work. Please make sure you turn in both your fish. I want to see how your fish turned out different. I want to see if I can find the differences that you made in your two fish. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great time painting. And don't forget when you're finished to clean up. Clean your brush and put it away. Close this up and put this back with your art supplies. Clean up your workspace. Throw your paper towels away and carefully carry your dish and dump your water in the sink. If you might need help with that, ask an adult. I'll see you next time. Bye.